after, and then I can't do that. It's my pleasure to invite up Rabbi Lynne Goldsmith, who is first and foremost a member of our congregation, and a beloved rabbi of multiple communities across the country, as you just jet-setted back in yesterday from how do you pronounce it, Dothan? Oh, Dotan. It's Hebrew, of course. In the South, it's Hebrew, of course. and Rabbi Green asked you to share some words, and as you said, how can you say no when someone's going in for open heart surgery? You don't say no. So I'm excited for you to share with us some important and meaningful and complicated teaching with us this evening in a good way. In a good way. Come, please join me.
Well, thank you, Holly. And I have to say, one of the reasons I said yes is because I get to take this off for 7 minutes. It's very nice. So on March 17 this year, we celebrated the holiday of Purim. It is normally a happy holiday where we celebrate the victory of the Jews of Shushan over the evil plans of Haman. You know, the basic, they tried to kill us, we prevailed, let's eat. Purim, thank you. Purim is usually very loud and is the one holiday that we're urged to overindulge and drink until we cannot tell the difference between the name of Haman and Mordecai. For a belief system that urges moderation in all things, this seems a little odd. I have never really liked Purim. For one thing, I was behind the door when God handed out creativity, and coming up with a costume every year was one rabbinical task I did not look forward to. It was right up there with the required attendance at board meetings. But more seriously, the Purim story is about a man who wanted to kill all of us, genocide against the Jewish people. And he came very close to succeeding because King Ahasuerus, who I always thought was a few French fries short of a Happy Meal, never ever questioned why all the Jews had to die. He just went along with what Haman told him. Now, wouldn't you think a leader would question the extermination of entire people, including women and children? This is a depressingly familiar story, and I wish I could say that it was just a story. But you and I both know that this has been attempted against us, not once, but many times in our long history. And when we tell the story of Esther, Mordecai, Ahasuerus, and Haman, we always leave out the end of the story. At the bidding of Esther, Haman and his 10 sons, who may or may have not had anything to do with the plot to kill the Jews, were killed, and they were put on stakes. Then, since the original decree to kill all the Jews could not be reversed, the Jews were allowed to kill those who were planning to kill them. 500 people in Shushan were slaughtered, along with 75,000 other people in the kingdom. This is not a story for kindergartners. This is a story about people dying, about people losing their loved ones, while others celebrated a victory. This year in particular, the commandment to be joyous at Purim seemed a little hollow. After all, not only were we dealing with a worldwide pandemic for like 3,500 years, it feels like, but every day we saw the horrific images coming from the Ukraine. It seems another Haman has arisen and is intent on destroying a people. The parallels with the Esther story were too close, and I have to say that the rabbi world had a wide-ranging discussion as to how to celebrate this year when people were dying in Eastern Europe. I think one of the more difficult things that we humans have to grapple with is the paradox of holding two contradictory truths at the same time. We're commanded to be joyful at a time when our existence is full of images that are the exact opposite of joy. So how do we do it? Yet there were Purim spiels, a very good one here, I understand, Purim carnivals, lots of schnapps, happy noise, while people are fleeing a madman. Most of you will remember, pre-COVID, Congregation Har HaShem received a grant from Sinai and Synapses to present programs on the intersection of science and religion. Rabbi Jeffrey Middleman originated the concept and actually came to Boulder for one of those programs. Since he was one of my classmates, it was a delight to see him. Anyway, he wrote a blog post recently as part of Sinai and Synapses where he talked about the Purim story. And he pointed out that when we read the story, we naturally see ourselves as Esther or Mordecai, clearly on the right side of the argument. We never see ourselves as Haman, the villain in the story. The contrast between these characters in the story is, of course, black and white, good guys versus bad guys, like the cowboys in the old TV shows. You know, the bad guys always had the white hats, the good guys always had the black hats, so you could tell who was who. No, what Jeff said really made me wonder. We don't see ourselves as Haman, yet why do we cheer when Haman and his sons, who may have also been innocent victims, are killed? And why do we ignore the 75,000 plus people who were killed by the Jews in King Ahasuerus' kingdom? Doesn't this mean we might have just a little bit of Haman in all of us, that we can be both good and awfully bad? The ancient rabbis, the ones that my professors at HUC called the rabbis with the capital R, were more than aware of this. There are several discussions of the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer HaRa, the inclination to good and the inclination to evil that exists in all of us. And the rabbis agree that they are both necessary in order for the world to survive. But one of my favorite writings on this subject comes from Avot de Rabbi Natan, a minor tractate in the Talmud. Rabbi Natan says that the Yetzer Hara is 13 years older than the Yetzer HaTov. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is developed in the mother's womb. For 13 years, if a human being violates the Sabbath, and nothing will stop him. If the person murders, nothing stops him. In fact, if he commits any sin, there's nothing that gets in his way. But at age 13, the Yetzer HaTov is born. Now, when the human being violates the Sabbath, the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, rebukes him and reminds him that the penalty for violating the Sabbath is death. If he thinks about committing murder, the Yetzer HaTov reminds him that the penalty for shedding blood is that his own blood will be shed. In other words, the 13-year-old becomes aware of consequences for his actions, and he makes choices based on that knowledge. Will he listen to the Yetzer HaTov, or will he listen to the Yetzer Hara? It kind of reminds me of the cartoons I watched as kids, where there was a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other speaking into each ear, and you had to figure out which one you were going to listen to. Well, we have to do that. We have to figure out which one we're going to listen to. The fact that we human beings are capable of both good and evil is one of those contradictory truths that we live with. We can be both Esther and we can be Haman. We live with the contradictions the best we can, and we do the best we can, I hope, to make the right choices. So yes, we were able to celebrate Purim despite the death and destruction in Ukraine, because that's life. One of my rabbinic colleagues said on a Zoom call the other day when we were talking about observing the yard site of a loved one, she said that it is beautiful and horribly messed up all at the same time. Now think about it. It's horribly messed up that we will never see that loved one again. We'll never be able to hug them or to talk to them. They're gone from our lives forever. Yet at the same time, they were an important part of our lives, and we had the pleasure and the joy of living with them, loving them, and being loved by them. On the yard site, we do feel the pain of losing them, but we also feel the love that we shared with them. To be human is to live in contradiction. And how we deal with the contradictions in the choices we make, that determines on how we live our lives. Writer Mary Andrew wrote a short poem that I thought encapsulated the whole contradiction of our existence. And she wrote, "I'm washing my face before bed while the country's on fire. It feels really dumb to wash my face, but it feels dumb not to. It has never been this way, and it has always been this way. Someone has always clinked a cocktail glass in one hemisphere as someone loses a home in another, while someone falls in love in the same apartment building where someone grieves. The fact that suffering, mundanity, and beauty coincide is beautiful and unbearable." Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Oh, gotta put this back on. I will.
Beautiful and unbearable. No, I wasn't saying that you, I was repeating your last line, that it's beautiful and unbearable at the same time. Goodness gracious. Thank you. Thank you. I think that that's really important for us to think about. And, you know, it was confusing of how to celebrate Purim, and our spiel never reveals the real ending. You know, the spiel is just like, bye, Haman, and then we sing that we're free and we should work really hard for everyone to be free. So thank you so much for giving us so much to think about. The Aleinu is on the bottom of page 5.